What's happening, y'all? This is Spunk from the Abyss, and today we're talking about the Fnaf 3 movie. Now, if you guys haven't heard, the Fnaf 3 movie is currently being worked on. It's in very early production. Scott has just hired some writers to work on the movie. Now, if you guys weren't aware, Skeet Ulrich was at a press conference and he did an interview and he was talking a little bit about the Fnaf 3 movie. Now, he revealed to us in this interview that FNAF 3 is currently being worked on, and Scott has just recently hired some writers to work on the movie. This is major news for the movie because FNAF 2 movie, I got some criticism, and a lot of people are complaining, that they want new writers, and they don't want just Scott working on the movie, which is I can understand that because this is, we got to keep in mind, this is Scott's first time in the film industry, so he may not be the best writer for film. And I think people are realizing that, and that's one of their main criticisms about the FNAF 2 movie. We kind of knew from the jump that FNAF 2 was going to be a hard movie to adapt. I mean, the FNAF 2 game has a lot of animatronics. I mean, we're talking about the toys, the Withers, the puppet, Balloon Boy, just Mangle, like all these new animatronics that Scott had to explain. He had to do some story building, and a lot of these characters have all these characters have some dense lore. So it was gonna be hard from the start working on the FNAF 2 movie, but I think it came out pretty well, all things considered. But nonetheless, I'm glad that Scott has new writers at the table. We already know that Scott's going to be very hands-on in that writing room, though. So whatever they write, it's going to be in Scott's vision. So the way he wants the story to go, it's going to continue to go that way regardless. But I think having new writers at the table is still a huge W for the movies because, Scott's not the best at writing for films. This is his first time in the film industry. He's just getting his first steps into the film industry. So, of course Scott's going to have he's going to have a learning curve with this whole film thing. And I'm interested to see how the writers close the story for the first three movies, because there's a lot of, loose threads right now in the movies. We know, Vanessa at the end of the movie got possessed by the puppet, so that's a thread that they have to touch on. They also obviously showed us Springtrap at the end, so we know the FNAF 3 game is all about Springtrap and Mike going head to head, and so that's just a given. Another thing is they also have to touch on what's happening with the old animatronics. We know the FNAF 1 original animatronics are at Michael's house. So, and then if the toy animatronics are dismantled, they need to touch on what happens with those animatronics. We know the team that gathers the relics for Fazbear's Frights has some of these toy masks in the FNAF 3 game. So will they collect some of these toy scraps and use it for the attraction in the movie too? I have a good feeling that they will. So it's another thing they're gonna have to touch on. Of course they're gonna go into Abby and Mike's story going forward, what's happening with Mike and Abby now. They're gonna go into that, of course. And I'm curious to see how the main character how Mike Schmidt is going to tie into Michael Afton in this movie, because Michael Afton is obviously the person that we play as in FNAF 3. So we're most likely going to be seeing him in this next movie. But then again, they also still have to touch on Mike Schmidt and cover and wrap things up for his story too, potentially. So it's gonna be interesting to see how those two characters come together. But yeah, they still need to touch on Garrett. A lot of people are still very curious, what's up with Garrett? We still don't understand why William went all the way to Nebraska just to kidnap Garrett. That's still a big mystery, and I feel like if this third movie is supposed to be the end of this trilogy, I feel like they have to touch on Garrett in some capacity. I mean, obviously you don't have to go into it too much, because I feel like obviously there's probably going to be more movies going forward than this. We already know the FNAF 2 movie is more controversial than the first one, and audiences are split on it. It still did good in the box office. This movie still crossed 100 million in the box office. It was a big success, so there's definitely going to be more movies. But yeah, all these loose threads they still have to touch on. And even though FNAF 3 at its base fairly simple, so I feel like if there's any movie to focus on writing and getting the script right, it's this movie. And it wouldn't be that hard to do, because the premises of FNAF 3 is simple. Like I just said, it's Michael Afton going against Springtrap, but the only thing that makes it tricky, I feel like, is the fact that there's all these dangling threads of Vanessa now as the puppet, Garrett, who does he possess? Does Garrett end up going on to possess anything in the movies? Is he the crying child? I have a big suspicion that Garrett might be the crying child. Garrett is definitely important to the lore in some way, and I feel like he's not. We haven't seen the end of Garrett. We're gonna hear from him as a spirit. He has to be a spirit out there. Has to be a spirit out there, and there has to be something else with Garrett. Like I feel like there's something there they have to touch on too. As we all know, in the FNAF 3 mini games, we have the happiest day, which is like the big, events in FNAF 3 through the mini games. Is all the spirits get their happiest day. The crying child finally gets his happiest day. So I feel like they should touch on that too. They should bring in the spirits somehow and explain. We know the spirits are put to rest at the end of FNAF 2, because we know the kid who possesses Golden Freddy in the movies, he tells Abby and Mike that they're gonna pass on to the next life, but to be careful about Springtrap, because he's gonna come back and he's gonna be stronger than ever. So we know their spirits are supposedly moving on, but I still feel like we have to learn more about the spirits themselves. Like, play with the spirits a little bit more. I mean, the spirit realm wasn't even touched on in the FNAF 2 movie. I feel like they can do more with that as well. So I hope we can see some more of that. Tie things up. I feel like that makes perfect sense. Tie things up with the spirits. Have the spirits have their happiest day. Is the person having the happiest day going to be the crying child still? Is it still going to be the crying child having the happiest day in this universe? Or see, that's another thing. How does a crying child fit into all this? We see a picture of Afton family in the FNAF 2 house. In the FNAF 2 movie, we see a picture of the Afton family in the house during Vanessa's dream sequence. So, where does Crying Child fit into the story? Where does Elizabeth fit into the story? I feel like that's something they have to bring up. They might not answer it in this movie, but they definitely have to tease something for them, those characters. Because we know Baby's created. We know the fun times are already created in this universe. So that means Elizabeth already died. Cece already died. They can't just move forward and not explain those characters. So there's just a lot of loose threads that are dangling right now that they have to tie in. That's the only tricky thing I see. That's the only thing I can see stumping the writers. But regardless, I'm sure Sky has a plan for those characters, obviously. So I'm just curious to see how these things are going to tie together and come to and reach an end. Something I definitely want to see in the FNAF 3 movie is the origins of William Afton and Henry. Skeet Ulrich also in the interview touches on the fact that there are going to be more flashbacks and more scenes of Henry and William together, which is something that I feel like a lot of fans are craving. We want to see more William Afton. We want to see more Henry. Those are the two geniuses behind Fazbear Entertainment in the first place. We need to know a lot more about them before we can move forward. And I feel like we deserve these scenes between them. Like, even in the games, we don't know much about them. We get a little bit more context about them in the books, but we need more of them. We definitely need. I'm hoping to see maybe them working on Fredbear's Family Diner together. Like, come on, give us those scenes. We barely ever hear about Fredbear's Family Diner besides FNAF 4 and some mentions of the diner in FNAF 2. So I feel like we definitely deserve, and we should. I'm hoping we get some origin flashbacks between William Afton and Henry, just building the animatronics, talking about their vision for the Fazbear franchise. And I also want to see how they end up butting heads in this universe, because we know the puppet in this universe didn't die because of anger or revenge. The puppet just so happens to come across William committing a murder, and William's just kind of like, well, I gotta kill her now. So it's not anything personal with Henry. So what is it in this universe that makes them butt heads? That's why I feel like they also gotta explain that. I hope we get some type of cameo from maybe Fredbear or Spring Bonnie. Like, maybe we get to see more of Spring Bonnie before he killed Garrett, possibly. I mean, it doesn't really matter to me what flashback scenes we get. I just hope we see more of William and Henry in general. That's something we need to have. Absolutely. We only got like 5 minutes of screen time from Henry in the second movie, and even in the dream sequences, William Afton doesn't. We don't get much from him besides the fact that he's obviously crazy and he's working on things behind the scenes. That's pretty much all we learn from William in the second movie. So there's just more we need to find out about them two characters. If we're going to be invested in these two characters, we need more context. We need more lore. Scott has to cough it up. I know a lot of times it feels like Scott just doesn't ever want to touch on the early days of FNAF. Besides obviously Secret of the Mimic, but that's pre Fredbear's Family Diner. So I want to see more of the Fredbear's Family Diner to the events of the MCI. Like that whole part of the FNAF lore is just question mark, question mark, question mark. So a lot of fans would appreciate some explanations there, some reveals there, some context. In this movie, I also hope to see a redemption arc or some type of explanation as to why Michael Afton seems kind of evil when we last saw him. We know he's not completely evil. Like, Michael Afton seems to be also like a little bit afraid of the animatronics, and also like he seems like he's not fully like supportive of it, but he at the same time admires William's ambitions and visions, seems like. And obviously, we know he's been through a lot of manipulation, potentially experiments. Just his mind has been played with a lot by William. So I hope we get to see some more of that, because if we are exploring Michael Afton's character in the third movie more, then we need to know why he is the way he is. We need to be invested in these characters first and foremost. So I think some type of flashback scenes with him would also be nice. Doesn't really matter to me how they explain it. I just hope they're not too vague. It shouldn't be like a one-off line where they're like, oh yeah, I was back in the day, William did this to me. Like some reveals, some scenes of Michael Afton potentially getting manipulated, and how their relationship was, father and son. I feel like that's another thing I'm looking for in the FNAF 3 movie, hopefully. I also want to touch on just what they need to get right in this movie. Because the first movie was generally, praised. It was generally loved by the fan base all around. Like, there wasn't as many complaints with the first movie. And we already know the critics, they have a problem with both of these. But I'm hoping they really need to stick the landing with this third movie. So to do that, they need to make sure they're going over everything and making sure nothing's left unchecked. And the main thing I feel like is Springtrap. Springtrap has the potential to be the next horror icon. And he already is. He's already a horror phenomenon. But they can make him even bigger. He can be on Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, It status. Like, he could be the next thing of horror if they do him right, which they need to. I mean, Springtrap is, when you think of FNAF, you think of Springtrap. Like, come on now. Like, they need to get him right. He needs to be gritty. I don't want to see no joking scenes. I mean, we know William in Day by Daylight. We know he's playful too, and especially in the opening scene of FNAF 2 movie, he has a performance personality to him, which is fine. Go ahead, throw some witty lines in there, here and there. But overall, William needs to be gritty. He needs to be serious. Even if they have to up the rating a little bit, we need to have some kills, some crazy kills. I'm talking even grittier kills than the FNAF 2 movie gave us. Like, we need to see him crushing skulls. We need to see guts. We need to see, we need blood. We need to actually see Springtrap do damage. He needs to be menacing. We need to fear him.
You will fear me.
It was lackluster in the third game. I feel like his presence throughout the whole gameplay was A1. Like, it was phenomenal. Like, I was terrified of Springtrap when I first played FNAF 3. Like, him just appearing at the windows, just his stare is menacing. So they need to get that right. And I hope they tweak the design a little bit for Springtrap as well, because I feel like his suit looks a little bit bulky. I'm hoping they slim it down a little bit and make him just, I want him to be accurate to the FNAF 3 game. He needs to be menacing and gritty for this movie to take off, because that's what people want. People don't want too many joking scenes of Springtrap and just throwaway comedy lines. Like, we want lore. We want gritty Springtrap. We want him to be feared by the audience. We want him to be the next face of horror. Like, if they do that right, this movie can really be something. Like, this really can really take off if they get Springtrap right. So that's the main thing they need to focus on. First things first, Springtrap. William Afton himself. Something else I would also like to see is the Phantom animatronics. Scott has said that in an interview with Dalco that he's going to try to follow the formula that he's been following, which is, FNAF 1 game, FNAF 1 movie. The FNAF 2 movie going based off the FNAF 2 game. So similarly, he's going to do the same thing with the FNAF 3 movie following the FNAF 3 game. And you can't have the FNAF 3 movie following the games if you don't have the Phantom animatronics. And that's easy to be done because the Phantom animatronics are just hallucinations. And we know Mike Schmidt, Michael Afton, they both have seen the Wizards and the OG animatronics. So, and they've seen the puppet. So they could definitely easily be hallucinating the FNAF Phantom animatronics, and I think they will include them. I think they will. I don't see why they wouldn't. I'm sure we can already assume that the puppet's gonna be in the FNAF 3 location. We know the puppet makes an appearance in the FNAF 3 game, just a small appearance. We see her in one of the hallways in one of the cameras, and her presence in the FNAF 3 game was something different too. Like I felt like she was just like a lingering threat in the third game. Like she was just there. But she was, every time we saw her, she was menacing, but she was just there, you know, like it wasn't too in our face. But I feel like now that Vanessa is possessed by the puppet spirit, possessed by Charlie, we can definitely assume that she's going to be there with William Afton. And, you know, and it makes sense that Vanessa's going to try to end things between William and Mike. Or is she going to team with Mike? Because, you know, Charlie as a spirit is already vengeful against William Afton, as well as the parents, but especially William Afton, because, you know, she killed him. She killed her in the first place. So I feel like, you know, it makes sense. The puppet's definitely going to make an appearance as the puppet and as Vanessa, because we got the hallucination version of puppet and we got the real version of the puppet. So we're definitely going to see both. Yeah, I'm very interested to see where Scott's going to go. If he's going to end things off, like, is this going to be an ending for the character of Mike Schmidt and, you know, the characters we know and love right now in the movies? Are they gonna leave the door open, or are they really gonna finish off Vanessa? Are they gonna kill Vanessa? I don't see that happening personally. I hope that we don't see the end of Vanessa before getting to see why she is the way she is. We still don't know why she's even so. We know kind of why she's traumatized, but we don't know exactly what William did to her. Like, we need the juice. We need the lore. We need to know what happened to these characters for us to feel for them. We already feel for them, but we could feel for them even more if we just understood them more. It draws us closer to the characters. So I'm hoping this is not the end of Vanessa, and I hope William doesn't die either. I really do not want William to die. It would make sense. It would make sense if William dies in this movie, but I do not want him to die. I do not want him to die. I'm hoping we do get a FNAF 6 movie. It seems far-stretched to assume that there is going to be a FNAF 6 movie, but come on, man. Come on. We all want to see the Henry speech adapted into the big screen. Just think about how epic that would be. I hope this isn't the end of William. It can't be. I hope we do get to see Lefty. We get to see Scrap Baby. We need more this could be a perfect time to get more context on Scrap Baby. How William's costume changes between FNAF 3 and FNAF 6. You know, it's just a lot of potential. So I hope they don't completely close the book. I hope they can end things without completely ending things, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's basically it. I hope they land the mark with this one, because if they do everything right, which I think with the writers at play now, there's definitely a better chance at this movie being the best we've ever seen. That's the main things I'm looking for in the FNAF 3 movie. They need to do Springtrap right. They need to answer some of the lingering threads, or finish off the lingering plot points that are still, you know, that we still don't know about. I'm sure that we will see what happens with Vanessa, but there's still other things throughout these movies that we're still like, you know, we could use more context for that. It don't have to be a main point of the movie. It could just be, you know, 5-minute scenes, or just a couple of tiny scenes throughout the movie, just explaining, you know, maybe the Garrett, the spirits, you know, just a little bit more context to that. But yeah, I feel like the premise of the third game is simple enough. It's definitely the opportunity for Scott to, even though I know he doesn't care about the critics, feel like pleasing the critics and the fans is ultimately what we want. Like, we want these movies to be perceived well, even though the fans are most important. Obviously, us fans, we're the ones that blew up this franchise in the first place. But I just feel like if this movie can stick both landings with the critics and the audience, that would be a big win. Like, I just feel like if Scott really homes in and really locks in, this movie is going to be the best we've ever seen. It's going to be the best out of 1 and 2. Like, this movie is really going to be something if he just really thinks about these characters and their motives, and like thinks everything through. If he really thinks everything through, and Scott's going to deliver with this one. So yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below what you want to see in the FNAF 3 movie, and if you guys have anything that I missed, if you guys noticed anything I've missed that potentially could get revealed to us in the third movie, please let me know that in the comments down below as well. And if you guys like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing, because I'm a new channel and I would love to keep doing this for you guys. So support a brother out. We're going to be covering more about the FNAF 3 movie as more information comes out. But until then, I'll see y'all next time in the Abyss. Peace out.